yeah, it doesn't do a ton of damage. It's a little bit. It's enough that it matters, you know, in a grindy game like this. It's still a little bit of a meme unit. Not something you see all the time, but this is definitely the matchup, I would say, where I see it shining the most. One change that might have flown under a lot of people's radar is the Arc of Sotek getting its Snek Vortex fixed, so it's actually very useful now. Going to be quite good at dealing with any kind of infantry blob. Today I'm playing Warriors of Chaos versus Spudhouse Lizardmen, so let's quickly get to the builds here real quick. We've got Mazdamundi plus Oracle, which I'm a fan of experimenting with this combo. A little bit of an experimental build. This is from our patron practice session, which is generally just us kind of trying out different things, getting in some practice reps, so take these builds with a grain of salt. But Bastiladon Solar Engine here, Arc of Sotek, its new improved Snek drop, we'll come back to that. Again, the Oracle here, rocking Fireball, Earth, Blood, and Mazdamundi with just nets and all his other support abilities. We've also got a couple of Pterodons out here skirmishing, some Saurus Spears, Pharaoh Cold Ones, some Skinks, more Pterodons out on the other side. For myself, I've got a few Marauder Horsemen, a few Hounds, Poison, and one non-poison. Metal Sorcerer up on a Manticore, tons of Chaos Warriors with Halberds, super cost effective right now, definitely in the best spot they've ever been in, and that's saying something. We got 4 of them, a couple of Exalted Heroes to support the infantry line, 2 Gorbeast Chariots. They seem to be pretty solid. I'm going to try them out against Saurus Spears, which are some of the heaviest infantry in the game, and are generally very good against Chariots, so we'll see how they do. And yeah, the Arc of Sotek here. So previously in the video, and you probably saw in the intro, it was, I said, only really good against vampire counts because the Snek Summon Vortex only gave poison, which is essentially useless considering that literally everything on Lizardmen has poison missiles just about. And yeah, it did literally like 5 base damage per second. No AP damage whatsoever. So it was very bad against armored infantry. Now it is a damage over time effect. Direct damage, hits like 30 models at a time. We're actually going to take a look at Total War Warhammer stats, unofficial, at twwstats.com in just a minute here, and we'll actually look at the effect and the damage scaling and how it differs. But initially, I'm going to come in with a rush here, just overload on the one flank with the Hounds. Mazdamundi responding here with the Banishment. I do believe, does the Snek drop get dropped at this point? No, just like coming in, terrifying away those Marauders. Or did he in fact? Yep, looks like he does drop it. So we can now see the damage over time effect. The nice thing too is that even as these Marauders run away, they are still going to get hit by that effect. You can see it popping up here now. And even if one model is still within the area of effect of it, I'm going to be taking damage. Nice Ruination of Cities, just blows up some of my infantry on this flank as well. Pretty good stuff. So far, though, out on this flank, the Gorbeasts were able to come in, help break up some Skinks. Oracle's somewhat isolated now, so we're going to move in some Halberds to try and support. Feral Cold Ones are also here, but they're quickly going to get terrified. They don't have much leadership to speak of, but sort of both each winning a flank individually. And this would have been a little bit better if he had just waited slightly longer. This probably would have got a little bit more value on that Snek drop, but even still, Bastiladon, considering its cost only, what, 1,000 points? Or a very heavily armored monster. All of the things I said before about this guy still apply, with a massive 140 armor, not the most weapon strength or charge bonus, but certainly can tank quite a bit of damage, and the damage potential obviously coming from his ability there. But so far, very close. We're both trading units back and forth. Very bloody fight so far. I've got this Exalted Hero all out on his lonesome, which is fine. He can actually just about solo these Saurus Spears. We're going to throw in a rear charge with the Gorbeasts as well. Solar Engine getting bogged down by Marauders is a nice situation for me, but this blob could go either way, pretty much. If the Bastiladon's able to get some good drops here, some nice healing sustain as well, hits all 3 of these kind of important single entities. Great use of the Skink Oracle there, with Mazdamundi giving him lots of extra magic. I actually really like this combination. He did not bring Apotheosis, and we'll talk a little bit more about spell selection after the fact, but this Gorbeast here does get into charge. They do a little bit of damage on the Skink Oracle. It's more about locking him in place, not allowing him to use that ranged attack to shoot my Sorcerer Lord. and the Sorcerer Lord's going to charge in. But another Sneck drop here, and this one hits again. Even like this unit right here is being affected, and you can still see if you look there in the corner, it's constantly refreshing, even though only a couple of models are in that area of effect. So because of the damage scaling, it's very good against anything with more than 30 models, right? Which is all infantry units. And given the fact it's direct damage, it's all pure AP, so much better against these armored infantry than it was before. And this is one matchup now where I do think the Ark of Sotek is going to be a pretty powerful tool. It's getting a little bit low, though. Another nice Earthblood to try and sustain. Does also hit some of these Pterodons up in the sky for added benefit. But right now, I'm feeling a little bit worried. I've got these Warhounds coming in. On the ground, I'm fairly thin, other than this one healthy unit of Chariots. This Exalted Hero holding up like a true champion of Chaos, keeping these Halberds fighting. More Skinks rushing in. The Warriors with Halberds holding for the time being, but definitely taking some significant damage. We can hold on long enough. Oh, nasty friendly fire there from the Oracle hitting the Solar Engine. That is unfortunate RNG there. Another shot here going to be going on the Gorby's Chariots. Double shot there. Does get some pretty good damage. But at this point, Mazdamundi's getting pretty low. He's been saturated in these Halberds long enough. And this Exalted Hero also taking some chunks out of him as well. The Ark of Sotek likewise. These two both kind of 2v1 him. It might not turn out great for him, but right now the Bastiladon's a little bit too distracted fighting the Halberd Warriors. But once again, Sorcerer Lord's going to dive on in. Unfortunately, though, the Solar Engine plus these Solar Spears does end up beating my Gorby's Chariots, terrifying them away. Solar Engine might be able to get back online, start to apply that blinded debuff, especially on my Lord, is going to prevent me from landing anywhere. And another AoE damage effect, obviously, from Mazdamundi's nasty little Solar Engine shot plus Banishment dooms those Chaos Warriors. Absolutely. But Sorcerer Lord here, and I do quickly want to point out, some people have been saying if you get any model in an area of effect of a debuff or direct damage spell, then it will work. I actually think what's happening mechanically here, and you'll see this as this Final Transmutation gets cast, is that it's actually larger. So you see, this guy was fully out of the area of effect, I believe, and did he get hit by it? Let's see. It didn't look like the spell actually went off there, so maybe I'm eating my own words, but I could have sworn I got a Final Transmutation that hit him there. Maybe we all missed it. But anyway, the point being that I'm pretty sure actually some area of effects are bigger than they're supposed to be. You see the Sneck drop get used one more time here, and even as the the Ark of Sotek routes, that's still going to be getting value, right, as all of my units run through it. You can see my warriors with halberds and doggos just kind of dying here. Suddenly my Sorcerer Lord's got to take off and try and get a nice little cheeky cycle charge here because yeah, all the support units suddenly ran away. Granted, the Ark of Sotek himself is done, and it does look like I'm going to be able to clean up here as Mazdamundi and the Oracle route. Army losses hit, so it ends up being a loss for the Lizardmen. But that being said, if we take a look at the values here, you'll see that the Ark of Sotek, awesome piece, considering how cheap it is. I mean, again, only 1,000 points, we'll look at that again. Considering in comparison to the Solar Engine here, in certain matchups where your enemy has enough mobility or width to bog down Solar Engines, and in heavier armor matchups where it doesn't make as much sense because you don't have as good of AP on the Solar Engine, I do think, which is kind of defines Warriors of Chaos in many ways. I mean, they have pretty good mobility in comparison, right? Lots of heavy infantry, very good heavy infantry, so it does make sense in this matchup to swap out the Solar Engine. This is one thing I was talking about with Spudhouse. We were kind of discussing fine-tuning this build potentially, and I did say, I think, honestly, I would have probably said double Solar Engine previously, but now I would say probably double Ark of Sotek, honestly, in this matchup, given how cheap and cost-effective they appear to be. Mazdamundi and Oracle, definitely some good potential in this combination here. I was able to manage them relatively well, and some of that comes down to the Gorbies, who didn't get much value, but did spend a lot of time mass blocking. That allowed my Chaos Sorcerer Lord to come in and get an immense amount of value, insanely cost-effective on the Manticore. Exalted Heroes also do pretty well. A couple of the Chaos Warriors with Halberds also perform very well. Super cost-effective, almost doubling their value. Not quite, but doing very good. The other two, severely limited, you can see from the AoE damage there, so goes to show kind of the power of that in the right position. Hounds did okay. I mean, they can sometimes do much better against Lizardmen, but Spudhouse didn't have too many Skinks for me to chase down. Skinks he did have ended up being pretty cost-effective. Same with the Feral Cold ones, although I do sort of wonder maybe it would benefit him to have more width. I don't know. What do you guys think in this matchup? I mean, It's relatively thin build, you don't have too many numbers, but maybe you just, with the other Ark of Sotek, kind of grinding in melee the whole time, using those extra snack summons might have made a difference. It ended up being pretty close at the end of the day. But let's go ahead and take a look at sort of costs. You could almost consider this thing a Mortis engine. It's not like a true Mortis engine, but I do think there are some comparisons to be made. It requires you to use it on activation, rather than most Mortis engines, which are just sit in combat and turn your brain off. But it is, I believe, the cheapest out of any unit that could be considered in that class. Certainly, the this big boy, Jabber Scythe, is a more potent monster, significantly more weapon strength, better stats, poison, magic damage, all that. And again, only passive drain, but it is leadership conditional, so sort of some weird things going on there. 1,000 points, though, is just so cheap for potential kind of AoE drain. Of course, again, a little bit weird to compare it to something like an actual Mortis engine, but if we switch over to vampire counts, I mean, just the base Mortis engine, 1,400 points, right? If you come in with Skaven, you're looking at a Plague Priest, which also takes up a character slot. Character slots with Skaven are very useful. They are at a premium, you could say. All Skaven characters are quite useful, and this guy, I mean, 1,400 points just for him on the Furnace. Granted, he does have Discourage as well, which is quite nice. 90 armor, not too bad. Less HP, though. Definitely less tanky. Yeah, about the same speed as well. Yeah, not too much more weapon strength, or actually less weapon strength. Of course, you can take spells on him. You've also got this Pestilent Breath, and again, it's a passive drain, not an active drain, but the price difference is the main thing I want you to notice here, and that as long as you're on top of your micro, keeping this thing on cooldown, and maybe not even necessarily keeping it on cooldown, but using it in the right place at the right time, this thing could potentially generate value even faster than a traditional Mortis engine, right? It's a lot more burst damage. And, you know, in fact, let's go ahead and switch over. I'm going to show you guys TotalWarHammerStats.com so that we can see, sort of drill down and what the actual effect is. Okay, here we are on TWWstats.com. Again, no official affiliation with Creative Assembly, but this is an awesome community tool where you can see a breakdown of every single ability in the game. You can even get modifiers for fatigue, aka vigor. You can get modifiers for difficulties. Tons of great tools. I highly recommend you guys check out this great community resource. Right now we're here under the abilities grid, taking a look at the Ark of Sotek ability here. It's got some interesting things: 1 second cast time, active uptime, recharge time, number of uses, all the relevant information there. What we really want to see, if I scroll on over, is you can see that the damage here, Vortex base damage, Vortex armor piercing, are both 0. So it does no damage in and of itself. Instead, it's got this effect here, which we can dive into. Damage over time effect, duration of 10 seconds. Each entity of the affected unit has a 50% chance of taking 1 damage when the spell is cast, and every 0.5 seconds during the 10 seconds. So 21 times in total. In other words, 21 DPS, damage per second, right? The check is made against every entity in the unit, but a maximum of 30 entities will receive damage each tick. So if you think about that, kind of the way the scaling works, again, units over 30, 40 unit models are going to be taking consistent damage from this. That's a significant amount of damage as well, right? 21 DPS times 30 unit models is a significant amount of damage. So against infantry, even against cavalry, this thing is going to be pretty devastating. I mean, it's not absolutely game-breaking, but it certainly is a much more powerful effect than it was before. If I actually switch over to this other tab here where I have the old patch, you can come in here and select any patch so you can kind of compare side by side. Now we see it only has the old poison effect and also does just 5 base damage. Like I mentioned before, 0 AP. So no question, this is a significant buff to this unit and does make it actually a quite powerful and potent tool in certain matchups, very cost effective. Now the question is, what matchups would I bring this in? Certainly Warriors of Chaos jumps out at me. Dwarfs is a little bit of a weird one because of their magic resistance and the missiles. Obviously it wouldn't really work into their heavy infantry, but other factions as well. Greenskins I may try this into. Although their infantry tend to have quite a bit of HP, just the extra damage against those big blobs of stuff can be Nice. Also against elves. Elves tend to have low HP, so any bit of extra chip HP damage you can do would be nice. Most elves will maybe try and outshoot you, potentially, so it'll be tough to try and get into those infantry fights, but potentially against someone like high elves. Dark elves may try and rush you. They're probably more than likely to try and kite you at this point. It's hard to say. But regardless, no question the Ark of Sotek got significantly better in this patch, and I might even wager to say it's the most improved unit in the last patch. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. See you next time.